Welcome, everybody, to the Apex Sunday podcast. We're hosted by two petrol heads, myself, John Dowsett, and Rob Ross. And this is the podcast that banters and rambles on about Formula One races, news, and events.
What's on your mind?
I was just reminded that usually at this time of year, it's when I've had enough of Formula One. I'm looking at it and I'm tired of the parade and I'm tired of the nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And then Monaco brings it all back. You know, it happens almost every year for the past 2 decades.
Right.
You know, where it's, you know who's going to win the championship, you know what's going on. And this year's just completely different. I mean, I've been thrilled with the year so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then Monaco comes along and it was just anticlimactic, you know.
It's the usual story of qualifying.
And I looked at it and went,
qualifying's great, race not so much.
And now it looks like we've got a new champion in the works. And, you know, if I'm correct in my conspiracy theory of Mercedes stepping away from Formula One and the money not being there, and there's definitely influx in Red Bull, Max is going to be the next Lewis.
Yeah, I've heard rumors about Ineos, you know, the new sponsor that Mercedes has.
Who?
ENEOS.
Oh, yes.
They sponsor Valentino Rossi's Yamahas in MotoGP, well, at least until previous to this year. Rumors, I don't know what they do, but they're a big company and rumors they might take over. But I don't know. Lewis is looking for another contract with them. Valtteri's talking about a new contract, so I don't know. But before we get to the news...
And Toto owns a big part of it, right?
I thought that was Williams he owned a big part of and he got rid of.
No, Toto owns a big part of the Mercedes
as well. Right. But speaking of Valtteri, before we get to the news, unfortunately, if you remember last podcast, I mentioned Pecco rather than Checo. Now, Pecco is a rider in MotoGP, and he was asked by the MotoGP press the following question after his teammate, Australian Jack Miller, had won the last 2 races for Ducati. Something along the lines of, Pecco, what's it like to have a strong teammate? Wouldn't you rather have a... Can you guess what name they mentioned?
Really? They said Val?
Yeah, and I thought, basically, wouldn't you rather have a Bottas? And of course, Pecco defended Bottas and just said, you know, Valtteri's fine. It's just he's got Lewis Hamilton as a teammate. But that's the crux of it, in a way. When you have to measure yourself up against one of the best, he's had 5 seasons of it. Doesn't mean he's a bad driver, but he's extremely unlucky as well, obviously, from the result of this race. But it's unfortunate he's getting that reputation, but it's almost inevitable. I mean, how many races would you have to win and still not be the champion to not have that reputation? Like with Rosberg, he never suffered that much. Sure, he won, but even if he hadn't, I don't think he would have had the same sort of reputation that Valtteri has.
But this is as old as prostitution, isn't it? I mean,
It is.
We've got somebody like Barrichello, fantastic driver. It goes on and on and on. Checo is one of those guys.
Right. Felipe Massa improved quite a lot, right?
I think the Bottas has all that it has to take, but man, the heat that he gets from the press and the heat he gets from everybody, It takes a very strong character to continue on. Is he done?
Oh, absolutely.
I think he's done. I think he's cooked. I think he's being cooked. You go through years of that being number 2 to Lewis. Everywhere you go when you do sponsorship events, it gets right down to sponsorship events where these two have to go to a sponsorship event, and Bottas is like, oh yeah, well, no, I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think only Jenson Button is the only teammate who outscored Lewis within 1 season. Alonso tied him. Button, I think, just outscored him. But over the 2 seasons, their teammates, Lewis had more points. So it's very difficult teammate to have, obviously.
Yeah. And the only way Nico could beat him for the championship was being a psychological tormentor.
That was nasty. They became nasty with each other. And obviously I was reminded of that with Leclerc hitting the barriers and denying Max and Valtteri another chance. But before we get to that, let's talk about the news. top of my mind is the McLaren Golf livery, and I thought that might have interested you as well. What did you think of that?
I loved the old livery, and I like the fact that they pulled it off perfectly, including the driver suits.
Mm-hmm.
They missed the mark in that the blue wasn't blue enough; it was too white. But other than that, it was cool.
I agree. The blue was too soft.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of the first F1 car that I saw live was Senna's McLaren in 1993. And when you see that Marlboro red on the TV, in person it's this super bright pink. But obviously it was made that way to look a certain color because of the way it's processed through the video cameras and so forth. I wonder if that was also a factor in the coloring of the car.
When I first saw it, it was definitely white. It wasn't the powder blue of the old Golf livery, but hey.
I was very disappointed actually with this because it didn't match it. It didn't have the power of the old livery or livery. It was a nice gesture. It looked great. It did look great on the drivers as well, I thought. I love the old simple numbers, just a big white circle with a big number in it. Just love that look.
Yes.
It was Williams' 750th Grand Prix. They've been around for a long time, but they're not really Williams anymore. Hamilton says Monaco needs changing. It's too hard to pass. Well, again, we hear this every year.
And who's Hamilton? Right?
McLaren unhappy with the revised flexi-wing tests being delayed. Suspects are Red Bull, Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, and Alpine. It's being delayed until the French Grand Prix, I believe, where they're revising the test. Again, we've seen this over and over again throughout the history of the sport. I remember one time they changed the tires mid-season and people were not pleased about that. To me, this is just, okay, sure, whatever. We'll see what happens. It didn't really interest me that much.
And this happens since the dawn of time. And the only people who have managed to pull off that huge advantage is Mercedes.
Yeah.
The blown diffuser, the trick of the bar car, Jensen Button that came out of the gate.
The diffuser,
What was it, a second half, 2 seconds, a lap faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
They'll catch up. It's just a matter of time. And I think it's a very cool design. There's another Adrian Newey creation, isn't it?
Yes. The other thing is Turkey is now off, which is going to replace the Canadian Grand Prix. So they're going to do 2 races in Austria, which seems to please some teams and not others. It's a very simple circuit, sort of a point-and-shoot circuit. But again, they have to do what they have to do.
I love new tracks. Mm-hmm. Gives the young guys a chance to have a new venue that they're on the same sort of platform as the guys that have raced the same tracks over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And maybe it's take the historic tracks of Spa and Imola and Brands Hatch and keep those and shuffle everything else up and keep all these guys on their toes.
Yeah, absolutely. McLaren signs Lando for multiple seasons. They didn't specify how many, but he was already signed for next season anyway, so probably another 2 years beyond that. We'll find out. Once again, he proved in the race and in qualifying that he definitely belongs in a McLaren. And I hope that next season McLaren improves even more.
Do you think that was a smart decision on Lando's part?
Well, I think in F1, the drivers don't have the options that they should, because where is he going to go? Mercedes is probably going to promote George. Ferrari's keeping Leclerc and Sainz. We've got 3 billionaire sons in the cars. They're not going anywhere, right? Mazepin and our 2 Canadian boys. Where could he go? McLaren have definitely been on the down for quite a long time, haven't they? But they've improved recently, so what else could he do? That's what I was thinking. And he seems to like the team, and that can work sometimes. We'll see what the new rules are just going to be. Either it's going to be what happens every other time, which is there's maybe a slight shuffle at the top and then the rest are shuffled around a bit, but it's basically the same pecking order. Or maybe we'll get McLaren winning races again, which would be very, very nice. But what do you think of it?
Well, God knows who's it going to be. Who knows what it's going to be? I wish that he would use his head for more than a hat rack and realize that I have to disagree with you. I mean, I think there's a good chance that Carlos could lose the plot, get pissed off that he's got a substandard car, and just say, forget about it. or Checo could, or anybody else could. It could be Williams that's at the front with the new formula. Who knows? I doubt it, because we've got Adrian Newey.
Yeah.
It's going to be Red Bull's going to be up there, but.
And hopefully Alpine gets up there as well.
Yes.
They should be up there.
The other thing in news is Max Mosley died.
Yes.
And what an epic man he was. For all the heat that he took, he did some pretty amazing things in Formula One and teamed up with Bernie Ecclestone and basically gave us what we have today, in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know too much about him. I know his predecessor was not well liked. Jean-Marie
Ballister,
he was
Ballister,
not well regarded. Is that true? Is that
yes, very much
the
so.
impression I got?
Max came in and did the safety thing, man. I mean,
yeah.
He came in and he's the man who pushed that through. So bless him for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anything else in news?
I really don't think so.
I don't think so either.
There's some pretty big stuff in qualifying, though.
Yeah, so let's talk about qualifying. And before we talk about the actual qualifying, we'll talk about the event of Leclerc crashing. And it's kind of news related, but Toto Wolff likes the IndyCar style of red flags, where the driver who causes the red flag loses their 2 best laps in the session. So I wasn't surprised to hear that Toto would like that in this particular situation. It always astounds me how situational some of these statements are. If it was the reverse and Lewis had smashed into the barrier, there's no way Toto would be saying he liked the IndyCar style red flag.
Yeah.
But the end result is, in the news today, I read that they're going to be discussing this. The F1 Rules Commission and so forth are going to be discussing this type of response to a driver causing a red flag during qualifying. The only response so far is people say, well, it will discourage drivers from going to the edge. I don't really buy that. Any driver thought that that's what the others were doing, then they would just go to the edge and take pole every time. I don't believe that, but what are your thoughts on that?
There are more sessions ended at Monaco than any other track from exactly what we just saw.
Right.
And the reasons are multiple. Number one is I know I can end the session. Mm-hmm. Michael Schumacher did it.
Yeah.
I have to look at that whole event and say it's 50-50 to me. I can't go one way or the other. Everybody I've talked to says, oh, no, Clerk, he wouldn't do that. He didn't do that. And 50% saying, absolutely, he did it. So on both sides, you've got him going at that corner where he hit the barrier, and you look
pretty straight.
And he's very, very precise. Very, very precise. Over and over and over again, he's precise. And when he whacked it, oh my God, did he whack it hard. He didn't miss it by a few millimeters, which is what it should be. He missed it by half a foot. It looked obvious to me. Did he have brain fade? Did his car skip out? We can give him that maybe. But at the same time, I can see him. It looks to me that he did it on purpose. And I'm saying that probably 70% that he did it on purpose. And I'm saying that because of the smile on his face throughout the whole race and post-race. He was perfectly happy.
Well, to me, I just think that he had just lost it. And that's why it was such a big hit. If he's so precise, that would be a very imprecise way of throwing the car away. There's no investigations. No one's saying anything officially, so that's settled. Do you think, nonetheless, that a driver that causes a red flag deserves to lose their best lap or their 2 best laps?
No.
I don't agree with that either. It happens, and if it's deliberate, then we've seen that. Michael was punished, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. And then Lewis is convinced that Nico did that on purpose, but nothing ever came of that. Did find it amusing, though, that on the Sky coverage, the accident happens, and who do they speak to right away? Nico Rosberg.
Right.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Right.
To get back to qualifying itself, it's often the highlight of the weekend in Monaco, and that's definitely the case this weekend because the race was a very expensive parade, and I haven't been to a parade in 40 years or something like that. Parades are not my thing. I heard there's a parade magazine, but whatever. That's probably about something else now that I think of it. But anyways, let's just talk about qualifying then. It was great to see these cars navigate this circuit. That's the great attraction of qualifying at Monaco, isn't it?
Right.
It's just great to watch. And I can imagine how it sounds as well. It must be amazing.
Well, there was the Monaco Meister. There's been two of them in my mind, and there's only two of them. And that's, of course, Ayrton Senna and Graham Hill. And somehow those two guys just managed to nail it.
Yeah.
And I think it was Senna that's saying, if you aren't rubbing the walls, you aren't going to get pole.
Right. How was Jill at Monaco?
I have to admit, I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
But seeing these guys driving the way they're driving with modern day cars, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
I really wish, again, that we could have a POV shot that's mounted from where the driver's helmet is. We don't get to see that. And it's so different from what the camera angle is we see on TV. It'd be so easy to put a camera in at a lower angle.
That would be really good.
No.
Yeah. Especially with the halo, right? They
Absolutely.
could mount it.
The front of the halo.
Right at the front of it. Exactly. And you would, or, at the sort of the level of the driver.
Perfect.
And you'd have a great view. Because in MotoGP, I'll watch a race the regular way, and then I'll watch particular onboards if, I want to relax or something. And it's just, wow, this is such a great way to watch a race as well. So if they did that in F1 and put it in the halo at eye level, that would be spectacular.
I have to take a look at the POV shot from the MotoGP races. I really do need to see them, because a lot of the POV stuff I've seen is this wicked leaning over angle shots that is unrealistic. If you've ever driven a bike at speed, your head isn't down there like that. Your head is up, and so that's not what they're seeing.
That's true. Absolutely. Like you can't, you would just see sort of the curves and all that, right? You wouldn't see very far ahead. You would see far ahead occasionally, and then you just see the curves and so forth. So,
Yeah.
But it did remind me of the onboards in MotoGP. I'm not sure about F1. They're sort of almost homey, almost sort of like your local track kind of feel, which I like a lot better than the complete smoothness of the F1 onboards. But anyways, again, an eye-level camera would be very, very ideal. Mm-hmm. Mick was unable to participate due to his crash in FP3, but obviously they let him race.
Why obviously? Why'd they let him race? Why would they
Alonso,
let him race?
Still not going too well
Seriously.
for him. Well, because you knew he was going to be faster than his teammate. I mean, if we want to skip ahead just to that little bit of the race, the one pass that we actually saw in coverage was Schumacher over Mazepin. And I've seen coverage afterwards where Mazepin kind of tries to block him and then realizes, I better not do this, and stops it. And Schumacher, within a few laps, was 4 seconds ahead of him. And then he was way behind him. They didn't show why, but apparently he had some engine problems and had to slow down and so forth. But I think it's if you prove you belong there within the X amount of time, in the other sessions they'll let you go, right?
The two Haas's were 3 laps down.
Yes. Well, they've got the car they've got, and that's all they're got.
And the next worst was AlphaTauri, Williams, Alpine, all the way up to Stroll, who were 1 lap down.
Right.
So up to 8th place was lapped.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Alonso, again, not doing too well for him so far. He was out in Q1. And Ricciardo out in Q2. Giovinazzi gave Alfa Romeo their first Q3 session of the season. And it was the first pole for Leclerc. He has never finished a race at Monaco. I didn't know that before they announced that.
Yeah. No, he's not finished a race in Monaco in multiple series.
Yeah, in all the categories, right?
In all the categories, yeah.
Yeah.
I was shocked at Alonso. I clearly thought with his experience at Monaco, he would be higher up. And then I saw the interview. I don't know if you saw the interview with Danny Ricciardo.
Well, I saw one with, someone, I think it was Martin, who said Sainz, because Sainz has been through the Red Bull, the Renault, McLaren, and the Ferrari. So he's been through 4 different cars. And he said that each time it was like going to a totally different category. The cars are so different. So he understands what's happening with Alonso and Ricciardo. But that's very interesting to me that they're so different that you kind of have to relearn, throw away what you used to learn. Or I don't know. It's just, I found that extremely interesting. What did Ricciardo have to say?
He was saying that he talked to Carlos about it, who had left the team.
Mm-hmm.
And Carlos walked up to him with a smirk on his face and said, "Interesting car, isn't it?" And he said, "Yeah, it's the most bizarre car to drive, and everything is just bizarre on it. Everything is just entirely different. When you get off the loud pedal in the middle of a turn, it's different. When you act differently in high speed and low speed corners." And he said he's just having a really hard time wrapping his head around it and having a difficult time grasping the car.
Right.
And
wow.
Is Alonso having some of that? Hey.
I would say so, because if you look at his teammate, he went a year out of the sport, right?
Yeah.
When he was with Mercedes, gets into the Renault at the time, and Ricardo puts him to shame in some senses, right?
Yes.
He said it took him a year to get up to speed, and look what he's doing now. In Alonso's case, he's been out for 2 years, but he wasn't inactive. He did a whole bunch of other series, right?
Yes.
WEC, IndyCar, Dakar, right? That's the whole range, right?
Yes.
So, it's just give the guy time, because he is a top driver, obviously. He's one of the top that we've ever seen, I think. And Ricardo is also an amazing driver. He always has been.
Yes.
It's interesting to hear that, because are we used to seeing drivers move to teams and do well right away?
In the past, who's ever got the fastest car?
In the past, yes.
With very little exception, the drivers are close. Even back to the days of Gilles, and you look at Didier Pironi, they were very close in regards to speed. Racecraft, that's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think it's the modern technology and aerodynamic, and there's so much more with aerodynamics now than there ever has been. I think that has a huge play on how the cars behave.
Sure. And the tires too, right? Tires have always played a role, but the science of the tires and how they try to manipulate them, and they spend a lot of time on the tires as well.
Yes.
That's quite astounding that he would say that the McLaren is that different. I mean, wow, that's interesting.
He didn't badmouth it.
No, but that's just a statement of fact.
Yes. And this could also be a statement towards Sebastian Vettel's performance.
Yes, that's true.
And is this going to continue? Is he found his sea legs, and is he now going to start performing like the old Seb that we knew when he was a dominating force?
Where he was taking championships from Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari.
Exactly.
And we saw some great racing between those two from time to time. We might see some between those two this year as well, but not at the front, unfortunately. Although he did well this race. Anything else?
If we come back to the big event for us, definitely had to be the separation of team drivers and just the sheer time gap between the various teams was bigger than I've seen anywhere else. So I don't know why that is. I don't know why this track demands that. But again, qualifying was the race. I don't even know if we need to cover the race because it was just such a parade.
Yeah. For the race, Leclerc has never finished in the points, but we already discussed that in his entire career, which is quite astounding. People are asking about, why did Ferrari not change the gearbox or the damaged drive shaft and, get the penalty and still be in the race. To me, they have very little chance they have no chance of winning the championship this year. They don't have very many chances of winning races this year. Why not take a gamble? It could have worked out. It just didn't. That's my view on it. What do you think?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And it is a gamble. And you've got Carlos. And Carlos finished second. 9 seconds back. Good for Carlos. I think that was probably the highlight of my viewing of the race was Carlos finally getting a chance.
And then there's the bad luck of Bottas. My God, I just can't believe it, really. He would have been on the podium. He would have been second, I think.
Oh, sure.
Right.
And for a team at that level, at the pinnacle of the motorsport of that class, not being able to get a wheel nut off?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, but it does happen. Obviously, since we saw it, my God, after I heard that thing in that interview in MotoGP, I just thought, oh, that's poor Valtteri. he took his chance, and unfortunately, his teammate is Lewis Hamilton.
And Lewis did all right. I mean, he did fairly well. He was a dog in qualifying. The result showed that. And boy, did he ever take a piece out of the team off record from when I hear.
Yeah, he was, well, even on record, he was pretty upset with the pit strategy. I was chuckling about that, just like, my God, well, how does this happen? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever been lost in a race? Have you ever had a hard time understanding what's going on
Absolutely.
after 15 laps? Or I know you only had about 17 lap races, or...
These guys have got engineers, man. I mean, there's no excuse for not knowing what's going on.
The pit board kept you up to date?
I didn't even have a crew member doing that.
Oh, no?
No. You know what? It's not that difficult. Even on a longer race. I can see how pit stops kind of mess things up. But for the most part, it's pretty easy to figure out where you are.
Mm. What about in terms of laps then? Like, how do you know if you're 3 laps from the end if you don't have a pit board? Or you look at other people's pit boards.
Well, there's also a great big huge sign at a great big huge tower that shows the lap every time you come around on the grandstand straight. So that kind of gives it away too.
So is that the case at all the circuits you raced at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, for the race, I have Daniel lapped by Lando, and again, he's saying his style just doesn't suit the McLaren, but we've discussed that already. My driver of the day is again Lando Norris. You can say he's lucky because Valtteri was unlucky, but still he qualified extremely well. And he's third in the championship in a McLaren. He's obviously at harmony with that McLaren, or he's getting there. How about you?
Well, he was complaining about it.
The tires at the end, right?
He was complaining about it. No, not this year, but last year he was complaining about it. And the year before he was complaining about it.
Right.
So in his first year, not so much, because he was just such a humble young man. I was very impressed with that. And he would complain about the car. I think, like you say, he's figured it out now. The driver has to figure out the car. That's their job. And are you going to be able to tweak it to yourself? Not like it used to be. Michael Schumacher liked a pointy car. It's pretty easy to make a pointy car, but not today. Because it's all aerodynamics. Look at the incredible back wing bouncing around exactly how they want it to get a faster lap time. That's pretty phenomenal.
And that's probably why I never got into motorsports, because when I have a go-kart that I can't stand, I'm so frustrated. I can't imagine myself adapting to it. Although, again, halfway through the race, I did adapt. I figured it out, but I still hated the car.
Didn't you tell me a story years ago about I think it was Martin Bungle, just being a complete wanker in the car and not being able to figure it out, the team hating him along with his teammate at the time.
I do not recall, unfortunately.
It was Blundell or somebody, I can't remember who his teammate was now.
Right.
But it was Martin Bungle who was just, like you say, complain about the car. It's not me, it's the car.
Well, I remember Senna. Who was Senna's engineer? He was a Mexican, Rodriguez. I can't remember his name exactly, but he said the great drivers, whenever a new part or a change in the car is made that is a good change, that will speed the car up, the great drivers get that speed almost instantly. They get it very fast. Whereas the not so great drivers don't.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring in the example of Michael Andretti in the McLaren. People talk about lack of commitment because he lived in the States and all that. I don't know, whatever. Okay. But I remember someone saying in the team that, Ayrton would just get in the car, we'd make changes, he'd figure it out, and it would go faster. And Michael would be like, there's something wrong with the car, that kind of stuff. He was a good driver in IndyCar, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's a champion, multiple champion, I think.
Yes, but that's IndyCar.
Or kart at the time.
Or kart at the time, or whatever the hell they wanted to call it.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't count as far as I'm concerned.
So who's your driver of the day or of the race?
I hate to say this, but it's the same as yours.
Lando?
Yeah. I mean, just to see the joy on his face, he's so humble, and his drive was impeccable.
Yeah.
It was uneventful. It was precise. He didn't mess up. Consistency beyond belief.
Mm-hmm.
You could put Gasly up there as well.
Yes.
Gasly was able to pull off the AlphaTauri. It was pretty phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Vettel had a good race.
Oh, so good to see him
Mm-hmm.
stepping it up. I was ready to write him off. On the other end of the scale, you've got the rolling chicanes of Mazepin and, I hate to say this, but Russell and Latifi in the Williams.
Williams and this circuit is not kind to the Williams whatsoever.
No.
Russell qualified well for being in Williams, but beyond that, no, not a good race.
And then you've got Tsunoda. And what about Tsunoda? I mean, he hurt.
Great showing in the first race, but since then, if we go back to Lando, he's such a great example of a driver that they believed in his potential, so they gave him time to develop. But how do you judge that? There's still some time for these guys.
You can only judge it up against who their teammate is.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it's even that much more important to have, a Carlos Sainz at Ferrari up against Leclerc.
Absolutely.
Or Vettel and Stroll. You want to measure Stroll. If he can keep up to Vettel, I don't care that it's a new car,
Mm-hmm.
he's worthy. Bottas has proved that he's faster or as fast as Hamilton, I think.
I believe, despite the result of this race, we haven't talked about the winner whatsoever yet.
There's another one. Does Hamilton still have it? Absolutely. So does Bottas.
I still believe that Mercedes has the upper hand and they will be back. But I hope I'm wrong. And what did you think of Max's performance?
I thought it was pretty unspectacular. It was fine. I mean, a great drive. I think he's
But that's exactly what he needed to do, right?
exactly what he needed to do. I think he's finally got the maturity that he's not making the bonehead moves that he did in the past. And I think you're looking at this year's world champion.
Oh, yeah? You think Max would take it?
It's very early to say that,
Yeah.
but I think Mercedes has not got the plot. I think they've lost the plot. I disagree with you on that, and I don't think they're going to put the money in to develop the car to make it a front runner.
Right. I think they'll win the championship again, and Lewis will be the champion. But it'll be close.
You don't think that Chaz Leclerc's going to pull something out of the bag, or Carlos Sainz?
No, Ferrari will be lucky to win a race, I think. I think it's Red Bull and Mercedes almost every circuit. But I haven't put any deep thought into this, not that I would anyways, but...
Well, look at third place in this race.
Mm-hmm.
Third place in this race was 20 seconds back.
Yeah.
20 seconds back. 20. That's like a lifetime.
Yes, it is. And you know that Lando drove, as well as he could.
And you also know that Max was likely just managing the car and managing the lead
Mm-hmm.
and driving at about 80%.
Mm-hmm. Which you had to do.
And Carlos and Lando were driving the bloody wheels off their cars.
Yes.
Yeah.
How would you rate the race?
1.
Yeah, me too. It's just such a parade. It really is. I even watched the highlights, and there's a little more passing, but guess which lap it's on? It's the first.
Of course. Right.
The shuffling, right?
Right.
And we see Schumacher do his pass on Mazepin, and again, just get way ahead of him really quick. Like Mazepin, I know he's the son of Eurocali, the sponsor and all that, but I don't know, maybe Monaco would you think it's the most difficult circuit for a rookie who's, if he's not out of his depth, he's just not with the car yet?
I don't think he's got what it takes. I think he's out of his league.
Right.
Would it be difficult for a rookie? Absolutely. Think about it. These guys that have driven that track, God knows how many times. How many laps has Alonso done of Monaco? You just know where to put the car, what's going to happen when it hits that little bump over there, what happened when you tried to pass somebody and it all went pear-shaped. They don't know any of that stuff. And you've got a dog of a car. So Mazepin, I don't know. Anybody else stand out for you?
No, not really. I mean, like we said, Vettel had a good race. Perez, I'm not too sure about. Didn't qualify well. Good strategy. Got himself up to 4th. So that's not bad. Vettel and, like you say, Gasly, really good. And, of course, our driver of the day, Lando. So next is Azerbaijan, which is a very, very fast circuit.
So Red Bull will win that because they've got the groovy
The wing still.
Yes.
Right. Maybe we'll see another frustrated Lewis Hamilton. Or maybe Valtteri will win there. That would be nice.
That would be nice. He deserves that.
Yeah.
Or Alonso.
That's going back to what you were saying at the beginning of the show with Lando. Is it a mistake to commit to McLaren? There's just no room for these guys, but they all deserve great seats. Alonso with Lando with Russell, Leclerc with any of these guys. They're great drivers.
But if you had a choice and you were to say somebody's going to come up and challenge the front runners, who's it going to be? I don't think it's going to be Aston Martin because they're just riding on the tails of Mercedes. It's going to be Ferrari or it's going to be McLaren. Could it be Williams?
No.
I mean, seriously. So I think that...
There's Alpine too. Alpine's under new management and so forth, so I don't know if they've had time to change the culture there. Probably very difficult, but I wish them all the luck.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of faith.
Me neither, but I hope so.
Like I said, I'm looking at it right now, and it's Ferrari or it's McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
And with ground effects, there's a reset next year.
Yeah, that's the thing that stands out most to me is the ground effects. Like that, the return of safe ground effects, because I understand they were, or was that just an excuse? Back then, safety wasn't much of a priority, but I understood the ground effects they were using back in the day were pretty dangerous. If you lost them, you could lose their car, right?
Really dangerous.
Yeah.
Really dangerous. But now I look at it and I think we could be looking at Mercedes and Red Bull as backmarkers next year. With Adrian Newey, it's not going to be Red Bull, but we could be looking at Ferrari and we could be looking at McLaren as backmarkers. We could be looking at Alfa Romeo and Williams up at the front. We seriously could. It's that much of a reset.
For once, you're far more optimistic than I am. But I really hope that's the case, because there's been some, this race is kind of a given. Like, it surprises us when it's a good race. Again, the qualifying is always good. But, we've enjoyed the race before, and the next race has much more promise than this one ever had.
Yes.
I look forward to it.
Doesn't have the peril, but yeah.
Yeah. Interesting location with the castle stuff and all that.
Beautiful.
The less we say about politics, the better, but that's another story.
Yeah. Well, there's some races I don't really even want to watch because of the politics.
Yeah. All right, John. Well, let's end it there, and we'll get together for the next race and talk to you soon.
Sounds grand. Thank you very much, Rob.
Talk to you later. Bye.